Good evening. I will call to order this special meeting of the Tolland Town Council, April 17th, 2024. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So, item 4 on our agenda is the annual budget presentation, which is pursuant to C9-9 of the Town of Tolland Charter. The town annual budget presentation. The annual budget presentation is intended to provide information and encourage public discussion. So I'm going to go through this presentation, and there's an opportunity in there for the Board of Ed. I know we have Dr. Willis here. We have Chairman Holt is here for them to speak at those slides. And then at the end of the presentation, there is an opportunity for public participation. So here we go. So the purpose of this is a high-level review of the budget and the process that we went through. It's a summary of our budgetary expenditures, a summary of our revenues, and there's an opportunity for public input and questions. This is the timeline. We are at the start point. We are in the informational phase of the budget. So the budget was set by the town council on April 4th. The referendum will be May 7th. And at this point, the budget, the town council's budget is going to referendum as is, so we are not making any changes to it. This meeting is just for informational purposes. So this is an overview summary of changes to expenditures in the town budget. We essentially have 4 categories of expenditures. General government or town operations, which in this budget is increased 4.23%. The Board of Education budget is increased 3.91%. Capital improvements is increased 24.4%, and debt service is increased 14.39% for a grand total of a 4.89% expenditure increase from last fiscal year to this fiscal year. In terms of town services, we have here a summary of the costs that drive the increase in expenditures on the town side. One of the largest was an increase of refuse and recycling costs. We do have a 5-year contract in place. This fiscal year 25 would be the first of the 5 years. We are expecting, and I believe the contract says that the refuse and recycling costs will be level in year 2. So we will not see a similar increase in year 2, but it is expected to go up in years 3, 4, and 5, which is very much in line with other towns and communities throughout the state who are seeing an increase in refuse and recycling costs. We also have an increase in the FICA Medicare Employee Deferred Contribution Plan and health insurance increase of $193,213. Again, the costs for these things are going up. So this is an increase and part of the driver of the impact to town services. We have salary increases. These salary increases were either union increases or the management level increases were approved by town council. And we do have a reduced cost for state troopers in here. This is not a change in the level of service. It is simply the troopers that we have right now cost less than they did last year. So again, no change in service, just lower cost. We also have new expenditures on town services, including a stipend for EMTs increased by $2,500. We increased senior center programming by $500. The legal services funding increased by $15,000. And there's an increased cost for early voting this year, which is required of us. And that cost is almost $25,000. So the Board of Education passed a 4.84 budget increase. This budget, as it came to town council, included a reduction of 5 positions and other program reductions. There is a link right here where you can find documents on the Board of Education budget. And there's a lot of information available on the Board of Education budget at this link that's on the screen. It's also obviously up on the budget site of the town. The significant cost drivers for the Board of Education budget included transportation, contractual salary, special education, and IT equipment costs. So these are the major cost drivers from the Board of Ed side, although this is a very high level summary. The town council reduced the Board of Education request by $400,000. So the town council budget as passed is less than what the Board of Education asked. And I know last night, I wrote this over the weekend and on Monday, so this slide is actually updated. The Board of Education did meet last night to discuss options for items that will need to be reduced from their original request. And here's where I'm actually gonna pause the presentation and invite Dr. Willett and Chairman Holt, if you'd like to make any comments at this point about the conclusions that you guys reached last night. I know you had quite a long and animated meeting last night.
Thank you, Chairman. To your point, and I appreciate the presentation as to this point, the important point is, if you recall, the initial board ask included 5 reductions, included reduction dollars. Well, we recognize that these are not times of excess. And as you pointed out last night, we had a very, very energetic, very fruitful discussion, recognizing that there was no good news. Everything was going to be tough. In a minute, Dr. Willett will expound upon what was chosen, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to just put out there, these are not doom and gloom. This is the reality of the situation. This is where we're going to be, where we're going to have to be. We have instructed Dr. Willett to continue looking for alternate funding revenue sources. And then we will absolutely support and try to do the absolute best we can with what we have. We appreciate the council's support and look forward to those continued conversations as we navigate through these years.
Yeah, thank you. I think we appreciate the efforts of the council. I know the council worked very hard to do its best and continues to do so. And manager, last night the Board of Ed did do a lot of due diligence, and it has been for months. The board's done a great job of working through some very difficult conversations and trying to provide the best outcomes for the kids and the community. And when you have a year where you have reductions, it's tough, but the 3.91%, I think the board found a way through it that is going to be great for Tolland. Again, it's tough to see adjustments made, and there's always a price to pay for that. They did about 7 positions at this point, but we'll always be doing our best to make sure that we continue the excellence that the school systems have in the past and will continue to have in the future. So we're available if you have any questions, but we appreciate your process, and the board has made its adjustments. The Board of Ed site that you referenced, Chairperson, we do have on there a document that illustrates what the impacts were. So if people do go to the Board of Ed budget site and they click on budget documents, which is one of the first links there, one of those is an update to April 16th budget adjustments, so people can find those there.
Thank you. And I know we have a couple other members of the Board of Ed who are online. I don't know if Dana or Jaden, I think, are online, if either of you wanted to say anything. I think you have to raise your hand if you want to say anything, and we don't unmute you.
Hey, Katie. Oh, sorry. Dana put her hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Jaden.
Thank you. Some trouble unmuting there. No, I would just echo what both Dr. Willett and Mr. Holt just reiterated. It was a very fruitful conversation last night. 3-hour conversation that was focused again on how do we save whatever positions we can, and given the circumstances we're under. And so I just I won't drag on here, but I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Willett, thank you to the chair, Tony, thank you to the Board of Ed, and again thank you to the Town Council for looking into this stuff and making the adjustments necessary. So that's all I've got for you right now. If I can answer any questions, I'm happy to, but the folks in that room are definitely more qualified than I. So thank you.
Dana, did you want to say something?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. It wasn't letting me unmute. Yeah, no, I would just like to reiterate what Dr. Willett and what Tony had said. And obviously it was a very long and difficult conversation. We we had many budget meetings and budget planning meetings prior to last night that were difficult. I just wanted to make sure that we know where we stand. I mean, we proposed a budget that included 5 position reductions and program reductions. With the situation that we were put in yesterday, we're also losing one ELA teacher at the high school, 1 social studies teacher at the high school, 2 science teachers at the high school, 1 PE and health teacher at the high school, 1 para at the high school, 1 librarian at the high school. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 positions at the high school, and 1 K through 2 educator. That's not only positions, quote unquote, it's people. Some of the conversations that we had today, specifically in our FFC, is when we are making sure that we are allocating our resources, that we are required by law to ensure that we have educators in front of our special education students, to make sure that we comply appropriately with their IEPs and their 504s. The concern is when we have gaps or holes that we would take, we need to ensure that we have folks in front of those special education students. Therefore, if there's gaps or holes, it goes into the general education. Unfortunately, that'll snowball effect into those tier 1 students will turn into tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and that will only end up costing the district and the town more money. I would hope that that we think about some of different cost savings that we can do. And I know that tonight's the budget being proposed, but I'd be remiss if I didn't have the opportunity to say that we have an opportunity as a town to fund the entire town. We have the opportunity to fund the town and the Board of Education budget as a whole, as the town of Tolland. I'd like to thank the counselors who did advocate for the entire town, including a robust budget for our school system. And and that's pretty much all that I have to say. I just want to make sure that we know that this is people, this is curriculum, this is programs, and this is classes and class sizes. And we're greatly impacting the high school. But other than that, Ms. Murray and Town Council, I do appreciate the opportunity to talk. I'm sorry that I couldn't be there this evening. And thank you for all that you do, and have a good night.
Thank you. So thank you. I'll keep going, and if there are questions, I think they'll come up at the end. The next category is capital and debt service summary. The government fund portion of the capital improvements pay-as-you-go increased by almost $78,000. This is for the purchase of various equipment and things that are on the capital budget, and we're going to pay instead of borrowing for these additional $78,000 this year. And the debt service line increased $676,489, which reflects the transfer of USIP principal and interest from Board of Ed and the town budget. So that's accounts for the entirety of the increase to debt service. Additional budget highlights, as we have in past years, the budget does include a small use of fund balance. This year's use is $300,000 as recommended by the town manager. We are also in this budget using $200,000 from the municipal tax stabilization fund. And so here is a pie chart of the expenditures in the budget, as I laid out in table format earlier. The percentages here are the percent of the overall expenditures in the budget. So as we have continued to see the capital improvements continue to be the smallest, then debt services, then town operations, and then Board of Education. And in terms of revenue, so this is sort of like walking us through the process here. In order to have a balanced budget, which we're required to by state law, the revenue has to be the same as the expenditures. So we have to come up with a revenue figure of $64,559,940. And here's how we do it. So we start by finding out, figuring out exactly how much money we're getting from taxes, from fees, permits, grants, etc. And this sort of outlines the various categories that are not property taxes. So we start with delinquent taxes for 0.8%. The education grants are just over 14%. We have other grants that are coming in at 2.36%, permits, fees, interest, etc. at 1.89%. And then we have, as we discussed earlier, the fund balance and the municipal tax stabilization contributions. So there's a big piece of the pie missing here, and it's here on this next slide, which is property taxes. So property taxes raised in order to pay for our expenditures would be $51,684,338. So in order to, that's a really big number, right? So what does that really mean, or what does that mean for each individual household, for each business? That information is sort of laid out here in this table. So the top of the table is about residential, the bottom three lines are commercial. And this talks about the household values. So we're talking about houses here, low, medium, and high residential home values. The market value of low, medium, high is 185,000 or so for low, medium, 255,000, and a high, the high category is 448,000. We assess at 70%, so that's why this number here under the assessment line is lower. And we tax at the assessment line. So you can see that the current taxes that you're paying at any of these categories is here in this fiscal year 23-24 category. And then at our proposed budget, this would be the new taxes that you would be paying and then the difference. So what is the difference on a yearly basis? We also included market value rates, because I don't know about you, but I sort of know what my house is worth on the market, but not to like the dollar. I kind of like nice round numbers. So we did include a bunch of market rates categories here. Again, the assessment is 70% of those, and that's how you calculate your property tax rate, and you can see the difference. The same theory applies for commercial properties. So that's all very nice, right? But what does that actually mean for me? So let's talk about, first we're gonna talk about other communities. Sorry, we'll get to what it means for me in a second. The proposed mill rate changes in Tolland. The proposed mill rate change is 3.78% increase. That's a percentage increase in our mill rate. We did want to make sure that we were informing our residents what the neighboring communities have proposed for mill rate changes. So these numbers are in here. The Ellington number is an increase of 8.45%. That's in deliberation still. The Coventry number, 7.17%, is going to referendum. The Mansfield number is the only reduction in our neighboring communities. I will say that in Mansfield's case, because I looked into it a little bit, Mansfield is increasing their expenditures this year, but due to a larger income of their grand list increased about double in percentage what ours did. So they have more money coming in from their grand list, and they also have a substantial increase in state funding coming in for next year that is covering their entire increase in expenditures to the point where they're going to reduce their mill rate. So that is due in large part to the state funding. Vernon is increasing at 4.23%. That needs to go through a town meeting still. And Willington is considering an increase of 8.7% plus a 0.9% increase to their motor vehicles. That still needs to be approved by town meeting as well. So similar to Tolland, none of these communities have adopted a new budget yet. They're still in some sort of a deliberation or consideration mode. So this is the budget question that will be on the ballot. Shall the town of Tolland's proposed 2024 to 2025 budget of $64,559,940, reflecting a spending increase of $3,008,583 or 4.89%, which requires an estimated tax rate of 38.74 mils for an increase of 1.41 mils or 3.78% be adopted. It's got a lot of words in it. And it's a yes or no question. So you answer at the polls, yes or no. When and where are we voting? We're voting at the library program room on Tuesday, May 7th between 6 and 8 a.m. I will note there is no early voting for referendums. For an absentee ballot, the link that you can fill out for an absentee ballot is here on the presentation, or you can go to the town clerk's office to get an absentee ballot if you can't vote in person. And here's where we talk about what does this budget actually mean to me or you or any of our residents. So you can go online and find out what your home's assessed value is. The link is right here on the presentation. You just enter in your address and it will tell you what your assessed value is for your property. And then there's also this tax calculation form. Once you know your assessed value, you can use the tax calculation form, again, linked right here on our presentation, to determine what the change would be in your property taxes based on the town council's proposed budget. So the intent here is to be very transparent so that residents can see exactly what this means to them. And I also wanted to make sure that we were sharing with our public that there are a number of tax relief programs available through the town. There is, the state offers an elderly or disabled homeowner program, and the town offers 2 local tax relief programs to qualified property owners. The Tolland Tax Assessor's Office is now accepting applications, and they will be doing so through May 15th. So if you're interested in finding out if you qualify, you can go online. The link is right here on this presentation, or you can call the assessor's office and talk to them about what you might qualify for in terms of tax relief programs. And this again, just reminds everyone, our annual budget referendum will be Tuesday, May 7th. Polls are open from 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. Like we do for all referendums, we are voting in the Tolland Library Program Room. So everybody votes at the same place. And their registrar of voters, the town clerk, and the town manager's office numbers are all here. So if you have questions, you can ask. And that is the end of my presentation. Okay. All right. So I guess before we go to public presentation, do the town council members have any questions? No? Okay. Anybody online? Joe? Go ahead, Joe.
Hey, can you guys hear me? Hello?
Hi, we can hear you.
Yep. Can you hear us?
Hi, Joe. He's muted again.
How about this? Is this
Now we
better?
can hear you. Yes.
Okay, it's weird. I got muted again. Is this presentation going anywhere else, or was it just for tonight's presentation? Tonight's meeting?
Yep, there's a second presentation of the same exact content tomorrow at the senior center at noon.
Okay. I was
Posted on the budget website.
Yeah, okay. I'm just wondering if we can finally correct the incorrect presentation that is often very misleading as far as the various departments that we show as far as getting increases in budget, where it shows the debt increasing by 14% and the Board of Education increasing by, I forgot what the number was.
This slide?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks. So yeah, we show the Board of Education increasing by 3.91%, and then the debt service is increasing by 14.39%. And we all know that that's inaccurate, because we're, again, in budgeting, basic budgeting again, you move the budget number when you move the liability. And we're not doing that here. We're keeping the budget number where the liability no longer exists. And it creates an inaccurate and a misleading presentation of our debt as well as our Board of Education budget. And people should be aware of that. And I think some people don't understand what's happening there. So our debt service really increased by nothing. It's less than 1%. And the Board of Education budget really increased by 5.5%. So people should understand that. And the way we're presenting it is inaccurate.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. So I will open us up then for public presentation. If anyone would like to speak, you can come up to the table, give us your name and address. If you'd like to speak online, you can raise your Zoom hand or press *9. And you can ask questions. We'll do our best to answer them. Come on up. Come on, George. You know we're not scary.
Gonna start.
Everybody knows my position. I just like to agree with what he just said. People have to realize that the school budget is much higher. I would like to point out here, and a lot of people don't realize that. But it is what it is, and hopefully we'll be back mid-May and fix it. But oh, George Aldrich, Fishing Game Road, my bad.
Thank you, George. Is there anyone online who would like to speak? You can raise your Zoom hand or press *9. So I'm gonna go back to the room. But if you want to speak, you can absolutely raise your Zoom hand online anytime, and we'll get to you in order.
Andy Powell, 21 Third Brook Drive in Tolland, and this reflects only my position as a citizen, not as my elected position, even though I'm remiss to see that EZC funding is not even listed, but that's okay.
It's under general government
There we go.
operations.
Okay.
I promise to say.
And we are trying to help the bottom line by doing our work to increase the commercial viability of 195. So with the Santini project coming online, with Starbucks coming online, with even Butter that has a good pen, we're seeing some expansion taking place for the economic base. So hopefully we'll help out. I just had a couple of questions. What drove the increase in the legal costs?
I'd be happy to speak on that. We have seen some increase in legal costs in the past couple of years. We also have a number of legal cases that need to be addressed. And we have increased legal costs to address and kind of guide us through contaminated well issues.
Okay, so it's not just a rate increase
No.
for Conti, there's actually more cases that we have to deal with
Yes,
than what we had in the past.
yes, and I will ask, Brian, when we renewed Rick, did we do it at the same rate or was this year a rate? I can't remember if it was a rate increase this year.
Same rate.
Same rate. So the rate for Rick has not changed, although we have been bringing in additional counsel. But I believe they're coming in very close to the same rate as well. Yeah,
Excellent. Gee, in a litigious world, not surprising. In moving, do we have a number, do we have 3 troopers or 4?
we have 4 resident state troopers in town right now.
Right,
And we have a contract for 4 resident state troopers to continue.
okay, and what was the value of a sergeant? Was that gonna be a on-the-road person, or was that gonna be an administrative position? Then I know that position was not included in this budget.
Yeah, I don't know, Brian, can you answer? what-
$50,000 more than the highest paid top step trooper, which we have none of those currently.
Okay,
But we had Eklund last year, so it would have been 15,000 more.
And I think.
than that, and that's an administrative position
okay,
with the ability to go on the road, but I can forward you the job function.
but it wouldn't really benefit a town of this size.
It's debatable,
It's debatable. Okay.
certainly debatable. So
Alright.
there are those that think it would and those that think it wouldn't, so.
Okay. Also with the, I had it written down here in my notes. For the presentation itself, while it's interesting to see the projected increase, I think if you're gonna show a projected increase, perhaps we show the current mill rate for those towns as well.
Sure,
That might be a way to round that out, because if they're increasing 7.8%, but their mill rate is 20,
yeah,
then that's, I think that provides a better view.
sure.
The one question that I had for the Board of Education, the 7 positions that we're up to in terms of being lost, are those actual people or positions?
There's some actual people and positions.
Okay, all right. And one other question I had, I think that in the previous budget, we had a grant person. How has that been turning out? How have we done any performance review in regards to the grant administrator? Have we seen, are they paying, is the efforts paying for him or herself, or?
I believe absolutely, and then some, but keep in mind that she's also picked up other responsibilities to include being our project manager, which is certainly not in her job description.
Right,
but
right.
A huge lift, and she applies for absolutely everything. There's a greater holistic problem in that the town of Tolland isn't exactly eligible for a lot of grants due to our status as being an impoverished or poorer town.
Right,
So like a town of Vernon will outrun us on grants based on that, and it's
Right.
difficult, but we're trying to work with CCM and CROG through that, but I believe she's worth every penny and then some.
I think
And she brings money in.
I think one of the things you may want to point out is that while it's a fairly new position and it was considered to be an investment to actually show payback.
Yeah.
For that,
Yeah.
this is what the town council does. We look at long term and this is the payback. And my last question was on debt, administration and debt closure. We used to have a graph that talked about outstanding bonds or outstanding debt. And I know that we're getting to a point where we're getting close to seeing the end on the bonds for the high school. It may be interesting to have that for folks, because when we look at those numbers coming down, that was at $50 million for the high school, somewhere in that area, that's gonna be coming down. So as we look towards the future, our actual debt, retirement, those monies can be applied to other things as well.
That was presented as part of the capital budget
Okay.
presentation. So thank you, I agree that it is very important, but we did see that graph as the debt service changes over the long 20 years, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a
And I would also, I have a couple numbers off the top of my head, in terms of grants. We did get a $700,000 grant to replace the tennis courts. Is that right, Brian? And that was originally, so that's a grant that our grants manager applied for and got for us. That project was on our capital plan, so it was something we were going to actually take out bonding for. And through our grant management person, we did secure a grant for that. We also had additional pickleball courts out of Heron Cove that were on our long-term plan, and we got a grant for that. I can't remember, 400,000 maybe?
Yeah.
So, you know, in just just those two grants
1.1 million.
is $1.1 million. So, you know, I would concur with Brian's conclusions, but I do like the idea of kind of posing the
Right,
cost versus the benefit.
Right.
I think that's a great point.
We have a tally.
I bet you do.
I can have it in the next manager's report.
Sure, that'd be great.
greatly appreciate the effort as a kindred spirit. I know what the long meetings are like and bags under the eyes and frayed emotions. I can appreciate it, and hopefully we can get this done in one shot. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, online, I see KHB is the next one in line. I think I can ask if that would help. I'm gonna ask Kate to unmute. Okay. Kate?
Yeah. Kate, Howard Bender, 103 Goose Lane. Just wanted to say a couple things. First of all, with the USIF, I'm extremely grateful that the town council moved that into town funding because that's where it belonged from, 10 years ago. And can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because I heard somebody else talking, sorry. So I'm extremely grateful for that. And I just think about like how much we could have been investing in our schools in those 10-ish years, had we taken care of that back when the issue first came up. But that's neither here nor there. We're where we are. And I'm grateful that the town rightfully took that back into the town spending, because as we know, schools don't make money. They educate children and create the future. So with that in mind, thinking about the fact that the increase for Board of Education still means that we're losing at least 7 positions. I thought that there was a 5 and then another 7 or so that were just hammered out last night. And to think that the increase in the Board of Education is just over 50% of our total increase as a town, I think that's more than reasonable. And I'm still pretty distraught that the town council chose to, kind of willy-nilly decrease the Board of Ed budget by another 400,000, but we are where we are, and schools are going to open up no matter what. And the schools are going to show up for the kids just like they always do. I just want to shout out all the hard work that those people that are advocating for schools, because they are the center of our community. And I also do want to acknowledge the work that's being done to bring in more businesses to ameliorate the tax burden on folks. And I will also say that I wish that we had used more of the tax stabilization money, of which I'm pretty sure we can use up to 300,000 a year, and tapped into the very large unassigned fund, reserve fund that's just sitting in the bank. But it is what it is. It's not my world. It's all of our world. And so thank you all for your work, and be well.
Thank you.
Chair Starter, can I don't know, am I allowed to ask a question of you or?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to, I know the use of thing has come up a couple of times. And so obviously the budget that's before us is what we all voted on. Can you just maybe elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah, these numbers before us were part of the budget meeting, and these numbers, the proposed budget column is exactly what was voted on by the town council and passed by a majority vote of town council. So the percentage changes are a reflection of those numbers, but these are the exact numbers that the majority of town council voted in favor of.
Thank you.
And it was a bipartisan vote.
It was, yes. All right, is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak? Please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tony Holt, 67 Mile Hill Road. As previously stated, I am the chair of the Board of Education. I just wanted to point out in response to Councilman Shea, that there's no benefit to us in trying to hide any information or play any sleight of hand numbers. That it's our intent to be transparent and open. So between now and May the 7th, anyone that has questions or concerns or doubts, I would ask to go to the website that, is in this packet. If you can't, email the board or Dr. Willett. Let's ask these questions. Let's make sure that we completely understand what numbers are in there, where the requests are, where those pennies and dollars are going to go. We are happy to explain it so that you can make the informed decision. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online who would like to speak? You can raise your Zoom hand or press *9. Joe, you were first. Go ahead.
Sure. So in response to Tony's comment there, then let's change that. Let's change that presentation if we want to be transparent then, and put the Board of Ed at 5.5 and get rid of the debt showing a huge increase. That
This
way
is
we are
exactly-
transparent.
Yeah, Joe, this is, I think that what's presented before us is what we have to present at this point, as it is exactly what was voted on by the town council on May 4th.
But we're just talking reclassification here, right? It doesn't change what we voted on.
We voted on
Right,
4
but-
lines.
No, we voted on the final number, and all we're doing is changing the presentation to correctly state where the numbers are. So if you want to be transparent, let's be transparent.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, Joe. It's not that I disagree with where you're coming from, but we voted on 4 numbers on May 4th. We voted on a total budget, which included a call out of each of these 4 numbers. And because we cannot change the budget at this point, this is exactly what the budget is. This is, the finance director confirmed these numbers with me. And we can't change the budget at this point. This is
So we're not-
the information you're getting at, and I don't disagree with where you're coming from. The information that you're getting at is all fully documented in our budget documents.
But again, it's misleading because we're summarizing the data incorrectly. And I'm not saying we changed the numbers we voted on, not at all. I mean, keep the ending balances exactly the way they are. We correct the beginning balances to show the reclass. It's that simple.
Well, the resolution, I see what you're saying. Again, I think that we are being transparent, that the information is all available. Certainly this conversation is on the record. So I don't disagree with where you're coming from. These are the numbers that were confirmed by the finance director. This is the information that I'm presenting.
Well, I mean, I'm only one member of the town council, but I feel it's something that should be, I don't know if it should be discussed because it's inaccurate, and maybe we want to present more accurate and clearer information, but if we want to continue to mislead people, I guess we can.
I would disagree with that conclusion.
Point of order, we're during public participation right now.
Yes, thank you. I would disagree, Joe, with that conclusion. That we are not misleading people, that the information is publicly available. We have spoken of it at length. The information is published and fully available to everyone. I do not believe this is a misleading. Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Okay, so next is Kate Vallow.
Hi there, I'm Kate Vallow, 80 Tolland Green. Thank you for the opportunity to provide some public comment during this period of public participation. I wanted to share something. So I have a senior at Tolland High School right now. And I've really started tuning into the town budget and the school budgets when she was in kindergarten. She's had the benefit of going through this school system, which has been really excellent for her, as well as my other child throughout that time. I started tuning in around then, mostly because, you know, my kids were getting just old enough that I could sleep through the night. So hopefully some of y'all can relate to that. At that time, the Tolland Public Schools portion of the town budget hovered around 80%. It was around there for quite some time, and then it has started to erode. I've watched this slow erosion for the past, 10 or so years, 12 years maybe. And I see that we are now at 69%. I do understand that moving some of the debt service over to the town side might have had a minor impact on that. I am glad that that debt service got moved over. But I just wanted to mention that I feel like this really speaks to maybe some shifting values in the town of Tolland. I'm hoping that it doesn't, really hoping that this council can be a leader in really helping our town to refocus on supporting education as being a really important part of our town, and helping to support all of our property values and encouraging young families to move in, keeping our town vibrant. Of course, I think it's really important to be funding all parts of our town. I'm really grateful for the work the council has done to that end as well, and previous councils as well. Just wanted to say I'm grateful for the education so far that my kids have benefited from. I really, as a parent and as an educator and as a neighbor to y'all, really hopeful that we can think about what our values are here and get back to supporting education in town of Tolland. Thanks. And also, I guess I'll just make a quick comment that I guess I just feel really concerned that Mr. Shea feels like he's misrepresenting things. I hope that he can clarify that at a more appropriate time.
Thank you. We'll keep going online because I think everyone in the room has had an option to speak. Next on the list is Rebecca Risley.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Could you hear me?
Yes, Rebecca, we can hear you.
I am unmuted on my end. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Yes. Thumbs up.
Sorry, how about now? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I am so sorry. I had earphones plugged in and I didn't realize it. My apologies. Rebecca Risley, 103 Mountain Spring Road. I tune into a lot of these meetings. I try really hard to stay on top of what's happening and seeing things as objectively as possible while also having a student in the high school, which is going to be most heavily impacted by these cuts. So over the last few meetings, I've heard several counselors who really seem to want to separate the town and the BOE budgets. Obviously, the Board of Education creates their own budget. We come together, make it into one budget. But please keep in mind, we are one town. The Board of Education, the school system, is a big part of this town and a big part of the budget. But there's a reason for that. The students are a big part of this town. The counselors at the last meeting, several mentioned as well wanting to protect town employees from losing jobs. And I'd like to point out that teachers are town employees. We're losing 7. 7 teachers are losing jobs or positions, but there are people attached to those positions. I'm curious if you're aware of the impact the cuts will have on kids and teachers. And maybe there's a misconception about how many teachers we have at the high school. I'd like to point out currently there's 3 PE teachers who are responsible for teaching both PE and health to 740 kids in grades 9 through 12. We're reducing that from 3 PE teachers to 2. We currently have 7 English teachers. It's being reduced to 5. Math, I believe that was ended up not being touched, so I won't go there. But science is being reduced from 7 to 5. Social studies being reduced from 5 to 4. So again, Dr. Willett, always welcome to correct me if any of my numbers are wrong. I'm going based on my experience with the school, as well as what I see in the directory as far as the teachers that are currently employed and what the cuts are looking like. So I really hope that when you're looking and thinking about these cuts, you're noticing what it is actually doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next online, we have Claudette Morehouse. Claudette?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Claudette Morehouse, 89 Merlot Way. I'm just a little concerned with what Joe Shea was saying. If those numbers are not correct, we're not going to be changing the amount that we're voting on, but it is misleading if those numbers are in fact incorrect. I was on that 6-hour meeting where, you know, board members were, you know, in a gruff because they weren't given the right information to make a decision. But now you're asking people to vote on, excuse me, vote on this budget without the correct numbers. That is not transparent whatsoever. And I would be inclined to also get verification from Lisa Hancock. You know, you're making a decision, you know, in your meeting as to what to put forward, and you know, there was a big ruckus because you didn't get the right information to make that decision. It's the same thing with the people voting for this budget. If those numbers are wrong, it's very misleading, and it's not fair to the voters to have to vote on a budget with incorrect numbers. Let's be transparent for once. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa, would you like to respond to that?
Sorry, trying to get my computer going here. The numbers are not incorrect. They are the numbers that the town council voted on. The only thing that I could possibly recommend to clarify, which I did put in the manager's budget book, was just a statement that says that although the debt service increased by 14.39% and 676, that it really was a reclassification from the Board of Education budget to, and the town budget, because the town also had 20 some odd thousand, to the debt. So it was just a reclassification of money that was already in the budget. I do understand what everybody's saying here, but these are the numbers that you voted on, and they have to be displayed in the way it is. So the only thing you could do is maybe put a footnote if that's something that you so desire.
Thank you, Lisa. If we make a footnote to this, can we update the presentation that's online?
Yeah, pretty easily, right?
Okay.
Maybe the exact verbiage that we had in mind, which is what Lisa is speaking of.
Sure. Let's have the footnote.
And hopefully have it for, what time is our thing tomorrow?
Noon.
Yeah.
I can update it for noon.
On yours, got it.
Yeah, sure. All right, online we have Deirdre Goldsmith.
Hi, Deirdre Goldsmith, 21 Marlborough Glade. If you are already making adjustments or revisions or corrections, I would say that the general public looking at this particular table that we're looking at already is already going to be confused because they see a percentage of money that's a gain or an increase, I should say. So they're going to think that education is actually getting more when we all know that education took such a hit this year. It's a disaster. So if there's any way that when you're making any revisions that you could include that there is a great big loss here and not an increase, because people are not going to understand. And I do want to thank in particular, all of the town council members that did support adequately funding our educational budget. And I want to thank you all for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next online, we have Liz Costa.
Liz
Go ahead.
Costa, sorry. Liz Costa, 54 Josiah Lane. First I want to say thank you. I think the footnote that Lisa just spoke of is, it's smart. It keeps everything, open, and transparent to what the manager's budget book looked like. That said, I think you really need to look at this long term. I was speaking to a friend of mine today who left the Tolland school system. Her student was then a third grader with 24 people, I think she said, 24 students in the classroom. And the teacher had difficulty controlling her son. It was recommended that he get an IDP, what have you, whatever. Goes to a different school system with much smaller class sizes, 16, no need for an IDP, no need for 504, whatever. With that same school system, the teacher can easily control her son. She's happy, the son's happy, everyone's happy. I just question, by cutting our education budget, whether it's at the high school, the middle school, TAIS, or Birch Grove, are we continuing to add IEPs and 504s to our system because teachers can't control 24 or 25 students at a time when they're very young? And then we have to fund it. Then we don't get a choice on funding it. So I just ask you in the future, when you're looking at this, and it's really the Board of Ed and then you guys to control, special education gets the money. They have to get the money. It's federally mandated. The rest of the students you're cutting, and you're cutting to the point where you're probably adding to the budget for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online who would like to participate? You can raise your Zoom hand or press *9. Anyone else in the room? Any other council members?
Yeah, I'll say something. Thank you to everybody that spoke tonight and Katie for doing the presentation. I don't think any of us did this willy-nilly for 6 hours. I just want to make that clear. I know a lot of people are probably disappointed, especially with my vote. It doesn't sit well with me. But again, we represent 14,000 people in this community, and I do not believe with an eye for an eye for another $200,000, the town to move on the Board of Ed was a very inappropriate comment by the chair at that meeting.
Anything else? Go, Jacob.
Yeah, just briefly, just kind of echo what Colleen said, there was this is a difficult process, especially when you have a very, very high starting number to begin with. It's been a difficult year, and we certainly didn't come to the decisions lightly. I think that what you see before you is definitely a compromise. There are parts in there that I like, parts that I don't, but it was what we could get the majority to agree on. And as Colin mentioned, we have to look out for the entire town. We voted up on goals as a council a few months ago. Supporting education is one of them, but there's also a lot of strong fiscal goals there. We want to also look out for our taxpayers, especially those that are living on fixed incomes. And that's what I try to take into consideration. Additionally, I'll just say, I look forward to, continuing to cooperate with the Board of Ed, in the ways we can, looking forward, to see what we can do to alleviate the pressures. But with that, it's out of our hands. Look forward to whatever the voters decide on this Tuesday, May 7th.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add is just that my hope is that the council will stand behind the budget. There's tons of information out there. If people have questions, similar to Chairman Holt and Board of Ed. I encourage you to go through all the information that's out there or reach out to us. So I have no problem with adding that footnote if that's gonna add some clarity. But, this is something that was worked tirelessly over, as Jacob said and Colleen said. There were compromises that, we're not happy with. But my hope is that the council will sort of be united in trying to put our best foot forward with this budget so that the public can continue to have confidence in the town council.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll let you address the statement that regard to, because I was gonna say something, but I'll let you do that. I think looking back at this process, what is most disappointing to me is that I continue to hear other counselors say, I represent all of Tolland. And it kind of has this like nothing meaning, because what we've gotten is this overwhelming support for the Board of Ed budget as it was approved by the Board of Ed members and as it was presented by the town manager. We had, I believe the last update was 100 emails in support of the Board of Ed budget to leave it as it was because it had already been cut by Board of Ed. We had a public hearing where people come out. I made a list of what people spoke about. We had an overwhelming support for Board of Ed. And for you to sit here and say, I represent all of Tolland. Where are your people saying, I want to cut more from Board of Ed? I mean, we here and there was a sprinkling of people, but we had such an overwhelming support for the Board of Ed budget. And there's, 7 of us sitting here, and we had a good number of you not supporting what the town people are telling you what they want. So how can you sit here and say you support the town, you represent the whole town, when you're not listening to the people of Tolland?
Is that a question to me? Because I can answer that.
No.
I'm not
Oh,
addressing it
that's-
to you,
a
absolutely
direct
not.
question to me when you're pointing at me.
I'm motioning with my hands.
All right, Jen.
So I feel that's disappointing. Because we're only 7 people here. And I have an opinion, and the rest of you 6 have an opinion as well. But when I hear people say that they support something, and we see so many people in support of something, I can't help but feel that that is what the town wants. So I'm disappointed in how some of my fellow town councilors voted, and what they were in support of, and what they were not in support of, and I hope that in the future we can do better.
Thank you. Looks like we have another public comment, and then we'll make sure the public has a chance, and then we'll move on. Rebecca? Rebecca's iPhone 2. Did the person who's online as Rebecca's iPhone 2, we are asking you to unmute if you would like to speak. This is your opportunity.
I asked her to unmute a couple times, no response.
Yeah. Okay. So I think at this point, yeah, Andy, did you wanna?
Take a second swing at the apple.
Sure.
Andy Powell, 21 Clearbrook Drive, speaking as a private citizen. The question of funding, I mean, one could look at the budget and we've talked about cuts. in real numbers, I don't think the Board of Education's number, just like the town council, the town's number is not being cut. It's actually being increased, and that's obvious, and there's drivers that go along with that. And as we know, or maybe folks don't realize, money does not equate to education or the quality of education. I think per student expenditure for Tolland is somewhere in the area of 13,000 or 14,000 per student expenditure.
You caught me in the class, in the back of the middle school
Yes,
classroom.
yes. So I understand education, so, you know. But if you look at raw dollars, the town of Hartford spends double what the town of Tolland does. The town of Hartford graduates 34% of its students. 12%, I think that number is about right, go on to secondary education. The town of Tolland will graduate 99.4 of its students, with more than 80%, if I'm not mistaken, going on to secondary education. Secondary education isn't the ultimate goal. It also goes to the trades. You can go to someplace else. So it's not a question of the money being spent, because we do a very good job both on the Board of Ed side and on the town side of bringing the most value out of our dollars, but it's program. It's program and curriculum, and the other hidden sauce the other hidden sauce is parental support at home. That is one of the greatest indicators of educational success. We're fortunate that in our community, we actually do support education because we do it at home. But folks are gonna look at these numbers and say, well, the Board of Ed isn't getting cut, it's actually being increased. It's not the dollars, it's the programs that go into it. And the one thing I also wanted to say for the town council, I greatly appreciate your stewardship of our unfunded resources that we have in reserve, because the temptation to go after that big pot of money has ramifications for this town. If for us losing our AAA bond rating, I think there are 4 towns in Connecticut that have that. And in terms of not only future expenditures, but then also cost of borrowing that money, our notes will have to be more expensive. So the actual stewardship by the town council of not dipping into that pool of money actually saves us money over time. So I think that the finance team here has done a very good job of explaining that. But while education costs more, it's the programs that we've lost. And I speak from that from personal experience as being board chair a while ago. And when we came to Tolland 22 years ago, we were teaching foreign language in the elementary schools. And then it moved. We had more opportunities for advanced placement classes. Those have been lost. Yet the numbers, we spend more and more on education. It's the other costs associated to education that are actually the drivers. I wish that we could have the additional programs. I wish that we could have the after-school programs that we have, but because of the numbers and because everybody is focused just on the number, we lose sight that it's not the dollars being spent, it's the programs and the curriculum that make the difference. Just like from the side, when we decided to cut the street sweeper from the town inventory, and we realized, wow, now we have a problem with our roads. And we had to go back and reinvest in that. 15 years ago, we didn't have a pavement management system and our roads were going to crap. And now we have that pavement management system. So in some situations, what looks good in the short term because it reduces the mill rate or doesn't increase the mill rate actually costs us more over time. And I think that the point of focusing on curriculum and programs rather than on raw dollars is the real goal here. So my 3 boys made it through Tolland schools, had scholarships that came to them, have graduated from UMass and UConn, and they're off into their own world. We used to celebrate Dan, what was Dan's last name? Our astronaut. I mean, the power of Tolland education can put people in space. And it wasn't because of money, it was because of the programs and the curriculum and the people that are involved in it. But I greatly appreciate your continued involvement and as volunteer citizens carry the weight of the town on your shoulders. And I would appreciate that you going forward would full force support the referendum as it is. And to fully push for as much of a vote as we can, because at the end of the day, we could come out with a 10% increase or a 10% decrease. If it doesn't get supported by referendum, it doesn't matter. So the question is, if this is the best case that we have for all services in town, we have to get a push to make sure that people go out and vote. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Hopefully that won't be a liability.
All right, we have a couple more public comments. We still have Rebecca's iPhone 2. We'll ask you to unmute again. All right, I am gonna lower your hand at this point, but if you, somebody lower. Okay, so Jen Galchan, you're next.
Hi there, Jen
Hello.
Galashant. Jen Galashant, 150 Timber Trail, Vice Chair of the Board of Education. I'm speaking as both a parent and Vice Chair of the Board of Education. So I tried to take tonight off. Last night was a rough night for all of us as board members. Thank you to the counselors who were on last night. But I'm receiving, several texts that we're taking a dramatic turn as usual in some points. So I'd like to start by thanking Counselor Murray, Counselor Moran, and Counselor Buckler for responding to my son, a junior's email that he sent to the entire town council. So I think I heard from most of you during the budget meetings that you all cared about education. It was disappointing that each and every one of you didn't answer a student with an email that was very difficult for him to write. Sounds like we're quibbling over some things again. The Board of Education should not hold debt. You did not do us a favor. You did the right thing. Education is a part of this community. It's a part of this town. There were options on the table to fund every department in this town with a lower mill rate and keep our funds, from what I understand from policy percentage, really, really healthy. That didn't happen. There were decisions made. I believe that we are reducing 8 positions at this point. 6 of those, I believe, currently have people in them. Boy, do I hope that that changes. But right now, that's where we stand. So decisions were made. Please stand behind them, whatever you believe, and let's move on. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there any other public comment at this point? Any other public comment? All right, seeing no further comment from anyone online, I would like to first apologize to the council members for asking for your comments without closing out and asking the public to their last chance. So I apologize. I feel like that was a protocol that should have been followed. Is there any other members of council who would wish to speak at this point?
I'll just say one more.
Hold on one second. We're gonna let Joe or Alex, would you like to speak? Okay, not seeing Joe or Alex. Thank you, Colleen, for your patience there. Go ahead. No, I just want to make sure everybody has their opportunity.
Yeah, of course. I just want to say I'll be fully supporting the budget, going on record. I'm off Facebook, but I'll be jumping back on. I know I did a post over the weekend for mutual aid buddies, but I will be. I'm just putting it out there that I'll be supporting it and putting stuff on Facebook as it gets closer. So I just want to let you guys know that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And I will, I'll be joining you, Colleen. I will be supporting this budget. I do support this budget. I think that supporting this budget at this point is in the best interest of our town and addressing issues of debate that happened in a previous council meeting probably aren't productive at this point. So I would like to just come out and say, on May 7th, I will be walking into the Tolland Library Program Room and voting yes. And I believe that voting yes for this budget is in the best interest of our town. I promise you, every one of you, that all 7 members of this council considered this budget with a lot of effort. This was the vote that was taken and the final vote that came out on our, on April 4th was not done lightly. We don't always agree. But at the end of the evening, we did come together and we have a town council budget. And I support it. And I hope that the rest of the council will also join Colleen in supporting this budget. And that on May 7th, we have a successful referendum with, you know, great turnout. That would be wonderful. I think it's in the best interest of our town for every and all registered voter to consider this budget, consider what it means to them, what it means to this town, and go out and make their own decision at the ballot box. I can tell you that working with these 6 people, working with the town staff, that a lot of time, a lot of deliberation, a lot of consideration went into this. I don't believe that any of us are happy with every single line of a budget. That's sort of how compromise and working on a team, that's the outcome. You know, we found a agreement that a majority of these town council members voted for. And I think that's a good thing. And so now we have a budget, we have the town council's budget. It is moving forward and we will have our referendum on May 7th at the library program room between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn at 8:22.
That's Jacob moving to adjourn. Is there a second? Thank you, Jen. Is there any objection to adjournment? Any objection? Any objection? All right then, without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.